So, welcome everybody. Today, I'm very glad that we'll start this chat with my two friends, Russian friends Natasha and Kostantin. Today, it's pretty like let's say a discussion about everything. So we will try to make it. Not long, but it's very difficult with these two because they are very interesting. So, starting from the point of the day that is like the results of the Russian election, but we already knew in advance. I prepared some slides, just to discuss to some data. Don't be, let's say, okay, afraid of it. I wanted to see with you both, let's say, the connection between the results and of the election and the previous Levada Institute approval. That was still, let's say, 70%. 70% also about the prime minister and Putin. But what I found very strange, at least in my vision, it was like the prevision of the polls that we can see in this, let's say, synthesis. That was one about the votes, certain votes for Putin. That was about between 55 and 60%, and the final results that was 87%. And it's a big gap because it's about 27 points, and for sure there was between 5 and 20% average of undecided votes, but it's a big gap. However, like the other contenders were not let's say available to do any type of damage to the votes of Putin. We can see that the gap was huge. However, there was not real other opposition candidate in the list. The only thing that was not as the prediction of the polls was the final votes for Davankov, that was, let's say, predicted between, let's say, 5 and 10%. But the final results of all three opponents of Putin were below 10%. The actual, let's say, results that we can see. So, what is your, let's say, opinion about these results? And we already knew the outcome before the election, but what do you think if there is any, let's say, change of what is happening if Putin is like confirmed for the next mandate, and the internal political point is, let's say, safe for him if this situation can change the position for the war in Ukraine and for the others foreign policy for Russian Federation. Kosti, if you want to start, and then we move to Natasha.
Ladies first.
Or
I can go first, whichever you want.
Natasha, I will put you because I want to see you with Sabaka.
With the dog. The dog came to talk to you. See, she can't miss our lives. What can I tell you from inside of Russia? Well, Putin is really, he really has support here. It's a fact. Like, I can't lie to you that, like, no, it was rigged. It was rigged, of course, because I think the real support is like from 60 to 70, something like this percent, but not 80, whatever they draw, 87, right? So the majority of people still support him. There is no opposition. There is nobody to, to do anything against him. Let's say he destroyed everyone. He ensured his position. So nothing really will change. I don't see anything in the upcoming future that might lead to any changes, let's say.
I am extremely disappointed. Everything went not according to the plan. I was expecting a different result.
Like
I'm
90%?
serious. No, over 90%. Well, wait a second. Dmitry Peskov told us officially, he gave an interview to the New York Times back in August, I believe it was August 5th or 4th, where he said that Putin already won with over 90% of votes. And I was expecting that. And then we get like 87.8. They underperformed greatly. These people need to be fired and sent to Gulag. Where is like 2%? Well, it's a joke, okay? um, well, I was expecting the results, just like Dmitry Peskov said, 90%. What is it, like 87 point something now? So it's close to 88%. If you notice, there's a trend. Every election cycle, Vladimir Putin, starting with 2012, Vladimir Putin gets 12 more percent each year, and he is going to hit 100% in the next cycle in 2030. That's also expected now. So expected. That what concerning the elections, and I agree with Natasha. It's clear. Although I'm outside Russia, in my heart and in my mind, I'm inside Russia, and it's clear that Putin does enjoy the support of majority of Russians. Well, guess what? Russian people get the president they deserve, and they get life that they deserve. And I'm going to be talking about what wonderful or not so wonderful changes that are going to happen in Russia. They will start happening very shortly. But, my dear Russian fellows, you deserve this. If I were to address them, I'd say that. So, what was unexpected about this election is that a lot of Russians actually stood up and made themselves heard. It's like ray of light, in my eyes at least. I thought that it would not happen, but it did. Tons of acts of civil disobedience throughout Russia, especially on Saturday, and people doing it inside Russia. And they knew that they were going to get in trouble, big trouble, and they still did it. And on Sunday here, outside Russia, you should have seen, there was a unity of people, of Russian people who live abroad now. So many came out, so positive. That actually gave me hope. So that was unexpected. The elections and the election result expected, but a few unexpected things also happened. That's my take on it.
Okay, passing to the next thing, I will return back to the internal economical and geopolitical situation, but I wanted to show you something that I prepared also for a previous stream, just to share with you, like with Kostantin, the economical data, because I know that you are more on this. So a little update about what is happening about European Union and what is changing about the import of oil directly from Russia. And it's very interesting in this analysis that only 3 countries are still buying directly from Russian Federation, that is like Czech Republic, Slovakia, and Hungary. So we can see that also this position in the European Union, let's say, choices are influenced by this. Slovakia and Hungary are like the more, let's say, pro-Russian Federation in the European Parliament. It's because they are a little bit influenced by the state without the access to the sea. So they cannot import oil wherever they want. Another interesting data that I wasn't expecting, it's like the import from China of crude oil. And if we can see this graph, the crude oil import from China in the last 3 years didn't increase in quantity. So if we already know that like China and India are importing Russian crude oil with a big discount, it's a huge loss of revenue for the Russian Federation. So if we can say all the data that we want about the internal GDP, Russian economy, it's flourish, it's going very well, plus 3, 4, 10%. We already know that the macroeconomical data are not good in the mid and long term. What I wanted to show that I was analyzing also in the previous stream, there is a report that is shared in our channel, but it was shocking for me. It was about the export of Russian weapons in the world market that we can see. I'll show fastly, but only to analyze it with you. I'm talking about not only about weapons, but about money, because it's less of revenue and lack of revenue for the internal Russian economy. Passed from 2012 2014, it's about minus 80% of the export of weapons. And the only 3 countries that order weapons in 2023 to the Russian Federation are India, Iran, and Kyrgyzstan. So, Kostantin, your prediction maybe were not in the right timing, but it's realizing, because
obviously,
because maybe you were, let's say, more in advance of the timing, but the let's say circle of the buyers from Russian Federation, it's reducing every day to a small club. And another thing that I was shocked about the data, I will show you the last 3 slides and then we can discuss about it. It's like the reduction of export of weapons were not about shells of artillery or whatever, but mainly about aircrafts. So we can see on this data that like the aircraft export, that it's the things with more revenue, because shells have no revenue. It's decreased incredibly from 2014 to now. It's like the blue section of the graphs. And I was talking with other friends about the main question is, these results, do you think that is affected by the underperformance of these things on the war in Ukraine, or other reasons? Last thing before your answer, it's about the actual position of export. But for me, it's a very bad news for the Russian economy, for the Russians. It's actually, and historically, Russia was the second biggest exporter of weapons in the world, and now it's the 6th after Italy. So now we are like bigger than Russia in the export, but the GDP it's increasing. So I cannot, let's say, put in the same scale the reduction of 80% of the export of oil and gas in revenue, and from the 2nd to the 6th place of export, but the GDP is going up. And in this chart, that it's very, very clear of what is happening. The red, it's like the Russian Federation export. We can see 2013 and 2023, the reduction from the red bar to the actual size. This is not only like a problem for the export, it's a lack also of work in the internal economy for Russian Federation, because if you reduce export, you reduce also the production. And when the war will end, you will not have buyers. Excluding the US, so you can analyze what happened in the export and then finishing, because US are out of scale, so I put them out. Just to see, like the orange, it's like a Russian Federation export of weapons to 1999, 2023. We can see that the collapse started from 2013 to the actual situation. And who is growing? It's countries that before were not the top, like Germany, Italy, Israel, and strangely Ukraine. Now it's in the 11th position, but was never in the export of weapons. So about this data, what do you think if there is a real perception in the internal, let's say, public opinion of the Russian about the real macroeconomical data in the Russian Federation, or everybody is let's say believing of Siloviki, Solovyov, Nabiulin, that's saying that everything is okay?
I suggest I will start answering about macro, and Natasha will give us an insight of what's happening inside Russia with people she sees every day, talks, she hears on TV, and things like that. How about that? So,
Perfect.
Stefano, the data that you presented is spot on. I'm not a military expert. I don't know much about military, but I understand things about economics of arms exports, production, and your data, I think, is absolutely spot on because what has happened in the last 2 years, two major things for Russian arms business. First, Russian army turned out to be a fake. Um, the quality of Russian arms, that was a myth that it's the greatest stuff in the world, second strongest army in the world, the best planes, the best ships, the best tanks, Armata. Oh my God, And it turns out that Armata does not exist. Okay, it was built out of carton, just a few uh, uh, few machines just to justify to show for all the money that was spent on its design and production. Russian planes get shot down every single day by Ukrainians who don't even have planes. Well, very few planes. Russian helicopters get shot down. Russia doesn't have much of communication equipment. It does not coordinate its forces. Russian tanks, well, you know what's happened to a lot of hundreds and hundreds of Russian tanks. I mean, would you buy weapons like that if they burn, if they get shot down so easily by Ukrainians who are, far from the best and strongest army in the world? And it's just people who buy arms, they are very practical and they're very smart and they know how to count money. So therefore, um, you know, that stuff is gone basically, and Russia does not rake in any more money from selling arms. And then I wish we could see in more details one of the graphs that I would like to see the breakdown of one of the first graphs. So go back to the circle graph is. Yes, this one. What I really would like to see, each country, how much did it buy the new armor, the new planes, and how much it spent for buying spare parts and service? Because when you sell a plane, you just don't sell hardware, you sell the service contract. Okay, you service your plane for
Sorry,
years and years and years. What's
Costas,
that?
to say in details, this is like the new orders. So new orders of 2023, and the interesting part is that India, it's an order for let's say a new plane project, but it's actually in standby. So it's an order, but not
Okay, for future
finalized.
order.
Yes,
Yeah,
it's an
yeah, yeah.
order placed but not finalized. So it seems that the only buyers of weapons it's Iran, and it's like spare parts and aircraft.
Iran is locked in. It has nothing to do. It has no place to buy weapons other than Russia. Okay, no one wants to deal with Iran, and that's totally understandable. And good insight on India. So I think what you have shown us is perfectly legit, valid, and it's common sense and logic. It's very logical of what happened, and the trend for Russia selling its arms is going to be selling less and less, even to Iran. Basically, won't be selling much to anyone anymore, except for perhaps Iran. And India is a very, very hard case for Russia right now. it's got very complicated relations with India, oil trade and arms trade and all of that. I think that's going to be on the decline as well. And now I would like to ask Natasha, what do Russians think of this issue? And then I will answer. We'll compare our answers. How about that?
I completely disagree with you on many things you just said from here. There's two things that I think you don't talk about is there's war. So the decline of export is kind of expected. First of all, yeah, because Russia was in shortage of um, armor because it uses it. And you know this. It's not like it's not just Prigozhin was talking about that. It's not enough weaponry. It's not about enough artillery. It's not enough. Blah 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 blah. Because there's none. Um, there are a lot of research written on that. Another thing is from what I see personally is if there was like huge decline in export, okay, I mean there is decline in export, we can agree on that, but the reasoning behind it, I see it quite different, because I have a few people here who work in defense sector, who work in these factories who produce, I can't name them unfortunately, I don't want to get in trouble, but they increased production, and it's also, by the way, it's in foreign news. You can read it in some investigative journalists who wrote papers on that they work like double shifts right now. And I see these factories that they're producing even more. Tanks are produced insanely, like an insane amount. They are not bad, as you say, because the
They
practice
burn.
show that even like as you saw, all these tanks that were sent from Europe, they are not any better. They're heavy, they got stuck, they are burning not less than Russian tanks. But the point is, Russian tanks are cheaper. They're produced in larger quantity than like German or American Abrams, whatever. That's what we saw in practice again. So I completely disagree on what you said. Like nobody needs Russian weaponry if it's cheap, and it will shows to be effective. Like Iranian, Shahids. Everyone was laughing at them, but eventually they figure out, like, when there are a lot of these mopeds, it becomes pretty dangerous, right? And the war is changing. About airplanes, I am not specialist. I can't tell you anything. I just know that the focus is shifting. Even my daughter, she's studying robotics, and I see the focus is shifting to drones and mostly these unmanned vehicles and all this, because war is of 21st century is quite different to the war that was, in previous century. And I think Russians also see this. I mean, it's not like everyone is zombified and they don't know what's going on in the country. Of course, they see all the problems, and they know about problems on front lines. They know the problems in the economy. I didn't see actually Nabiulina talking so much how everything will be easy and how great our economy is, more than pointing actually at problems. But she is like, in this position when she can't openly speak. That's another point. So I don't see her like cheering up and like everything will be fine. It's mostly Medvedev and some of these weird people who are shouting how strong Russian economy is, and sanctions could influence in that. And third point, the last one that I wanted to point at, is also, I see this data, I look at this data, and I always ask you, what's the source of this data? Because we've seen a lot of data, like with oil before, like, oh, все, export dropped. Russia is not selling oil, and then eventually, after like 2 years, Bloomberg is posting, research showing that there is a huge, this black, how it's called, shady, how they call it, господи, ships that Russia used to deliver this oil, basically, and everyone is buying above the cap, and Russia is still selling. Of course, numbers are not like how they were pre-war, but still, there's something that we don't see. And I'm sure that there is something like this going on with weaponry too, might be in future, not right now, because right now Russia really needs all this weaponry, and they produce it. They mostly concentrate on front than on export. So yeah, I think that's what I wanted to say.
Natasha, if I can like say something
Uh,
about
Stefano, can I please can I follow up with Natasha?
okay.
First of all, Natasha, I agree with you completely. You might have misunderstood me. I didn't say that Russia produces less arms. I said that it exports less. Okay, and again, I'm not an expert in military, but what I have seen today kind of hits the spot. Basically, this is a common knowledge, and I'm not just the one saying that. Russian military-industrial complex is working 3 shifts now, and it's working at the peak of its capacity. There's no question about that. And yes, it produces so many more weapons and ammo and perhaps planes, perhaps tanks. I don't know. I disagree with you on quality of Russian tanks. It turned out to be not so high, great turn down, and the tanks that come from Germany and America, they're so much more technologically advanced. Although, they're not the newest equipment because nothing new gets to Ukraine.
I didn't talk about
And
this. I didn't say that they are like technologically more. I talk about the price, and the quantity how Russia can produce. So tanks might be outdated, but they produce more tanks than Europe can produce.
there's no
That's the
question.
point.
There's no question about that. Yes, I believe. I agree with that. Although what I disagree with, it's they don't. They didn't stop exporting because they need everything to go to send to Ukraine. Well, it's my opinion, of course, but I think that they've stopped exporting because demand has fallen down greatly. Because what you do is you don't stop your exports because this is a huge market for you. Even if you have a war somewhere, you still keep exporting, you still keep selling because that's livelihood for your military industrial complex. If they did that deliberately, let me tell you, it's a very bad strategy. Okay, that's all I wanted to add. And concerning of people, I have a little different picture of. I speak to Russians every single day who still remain inside Russia, and the majority of people, their opinions I get is they want to be isolated. They don't want to talk about anything war related, anything economy related. Once I start asking questions, once I start bringing this unpleasant and uncomfortable topics up, they shut down. They say, we don't know much. We don't watch the news. All I know is I have a job. I go to work. I make money. I feed my family. I don't want to know anything else. Okay. This is my circle of communication, at least. This is what's happening. And quite a few people, I've heard this opinion. Just 1 or 2 carried conversations, answered the questions, and so forth. The rest don't want to know much about that. They say it's not on my business.
It's true. I think it's been going on for years. Actually, it's not a new trait, let's say, of Russians that they developed recently. It was going on for decades, I think. Like, I'm out of politics, remember?
They are paying for it now because if you're out of politics, just one moment comes when politics come to you and knock on your door. And, well, everyone learns in a hard way.
I wanted only to add for Natasha the 2 sources. One is Visual that is CIPRI. I posted like in the comments. It's like a database that is like public and is with all the arm trades made worldwide from 1950. So it's like the best source open data in the world, and it's updated every year. The most important things that I didn't know in advance, because I was studying this report recently, it's about the difference between order and deliveries. So it's very interesting because what you said, it's connected to the internal request of the Russian army on the front, but it's without revenues because you are using internally. So no revenues. It's like you are forcing your state industry to produce for the war. So you are cutting all the revenues for the export, and the war economy will not be replaced after the end of war in Ukraine with export, because the people that are taking choices about the orders, we can see in this graph. The graph is showing that the orders are declining, like technically from 2018, you can see like in this, and in 2023 only you have like only 145 orders. And the main thing is this: it's about the transfers. The last weapons transferred abroad from the Russian Federation that it's registered, it's from 2015. So the orders that we can see after, it's still orders. It's not delivered weapons. You have not delivered weapons from Russian Federation from 2015. So this data, I think it's shocking for someone that is analyzing the macroeconomical data, because you can make orders, but till you don't deliver them, they don't pay you. It's the same things. Imagine that in Italy there is a huge player that it's called Leonardo. Kostantin knows it, but it was before Finmeccanica. There was huge deals, for example, with Finland and Sweden about helicopters. They have orders, but they decided that they didn't want them anymore, so they didn't pay, and there was a huge loss for the Italian company. So the last revenue that was given to the Russian Federation for weapons is based on the year 2015. We are in 2024, it's like 9 years ago. The other interesting things, it's like the declining of the shareholders for the export. The problem is that if the trend is like this in the last 9 years, it's not something that you can reverse, especially about the performance of the weapons in war. Let's take an example. As you said, it's very important, like in the new market, the drones. The drones started to be fundamental in the export market from the Nagorno-Karabakh war 2020. And the biggest gain was of two countries, Turkey and Israel, the two biggest suppliers of Azerbaijan. So if we can see in this graph, we can see only top 10, but in the top 10, you can see that there is Israel that is growing. So what you said, it's right, but it's not good for Russia, because Russia is not in the quota of a producer of drones.
I didn't say it's good for Russia. I just pointed why this decline also might happen. Because they could prepare for this war, they needed this weaponry. And I'm not saying that it's the right strategy or something like this.
Yeah, I was only showing the data. And the second thing about oil, we didn't say also with Kostantin that it was a crashing of export of oil in quantity. Like this is the quantity, and we can see that it's the same amount of before. The problem is the revenue. The revenue is 500 million euro less for day. 500 million, half a billion of euro less for day of revenues. So if my economy, it's 40% export of gas and oil, and 40% of revenue less, like it's a huge, I'd say it's a huge deal to manage for a long term. This is why I'm thinking that
Huge.
maybe it could be good also for the Russian to organize a sort of a deal to finish this situation, because it's not sustainable in long term. But what do you think about it, Kostya?
Well, first of all, you're right. They made a special law that allows government to classify information about exports of raw materials and mineral resources. And as far as I know about gas, natural gas, they're giving the amounts of extracted and exported gas, but they're not giving the revenues, because revenues are, compared to the previous years, I'd say they're catastrophic. They do not supply, well, very little supply to Europe, and China is just demanding huge discounts. And oil, well, we know the story. I mean, that the chart that you're showing is correct. But I disagree. Russia does produce less oil, 947,000 barrels less per day, because last year it decreased in a deal with OPEC Plus. It decreased production output by 500,000 barrels per day, and it just recently decreased by another, I think, 450,000. So it's almost million barrels per day they pump less. So that definitely is going to, well, it has affected the amount of oil they exported. And man, the situation in oil export is, I don't even know how it's not. Let's put it this way: it's not good for Russia. It's not good in the longer. Russia has lost its means of good life, so to speak, because oil and gas revenues filled the Russian budget for 50%. Imagine you make $100,000 per year. You go to work, every day. You have a job, and then all of a sudden you do the same amount of work, but then you all of a sudden receive $50,000 per year. Your salary halved, but you have same expenses. They even increased. Okay, what you gonna do? And this is exactly the situation Russia is facing right now. And moreover, like you said, Stefan, I was kind of jumping ahead of train. Okay, because I didn't think that sanctions against Russia oil exports would be useless, and they were in 2022. They actually helped Russia, and Russia earned extra revenue, and then used that money to get through 2023 painlessly, so to speak. Okay, but sooner or later the situation has caught up, and the catch up is now, right now. We are seeing it right now. Russian ruble started devaluing last Friday, even before the election started. Right now, well, anyway, watch my stream tonight. I'm going to be talking about that. Taxes will be increased in Russia any day now, perhaps within a couple of weeks. Personal income tax is going to be, well, increased by a great deal. Business tax, what do you call it? Profit tax? The
Gain
business that makes gain tax or whatever, profit tax, that's going to be increased. And there are rumors that value added tax will be increased. And yes, although I don't know about that, that's still up in the air. We are seeing the perfect storm that's been spinning over Russia, and it finally starts taking effect. All the sugarcoating is off now. It ended yesterday. Okay, they don't need to sugarcoat anything. And well, mark my words, you're gonna be seeing changes right now.
A question that I have other data to share, but another question that it was interesting for me because I have still, let's say, a lot of friends in Russia, and also, like Natasha said, let's say in good position, but give me some like tweets. So this information that I've got is that this friend that is working for, let's say, a big oil company, one of the biggest in Russia, were forced to go to vote for the first day of election. Why do you think that there was this?
Pardon me, I didn't get it. Was forced to do what?
Like if you have to vote, you have like 3 days. So the let's say the employers of the state-owned companies were technically forced to go to vote only for the first day.
It always, yeah, that's happened with my dad. He's teacher in college, so that's what they did.
But why? Why is the reason technically to do it?
Forcing extra
Putin,
work?
No. Kostantin, you have like an obligation to go to vote the first day of voting.
To go vote. Okay. All right. Understood.
Putin needs his 90%, right? So the first day it was all teachers, all people who depend on budget of Russian Federation. They were forced to go and vote or vote electronically.
No,
like
it's
through
only very strange for me because I don't understand the reason. Also, if you want, let's say, to make some game with the votes or whatever, why it was to force like the state-owned companies, employers to go to vote on the first day? It's
because
strange.
because you can
Make
manipulate. Like why Navalny asked for people to go at the last day because it's harder to manipulate during last day. It's still
Okay.
possible.
let me explain you in a very nutshell how voting system in Russia works. It's not Putin that made everyone. No, she's just sitting there waiting for the info to come to him. Okay, he set a goal, he or perhaps his friends, his circle, I don't know. But the goal was set, and there's a person responsible for voting and getting results. And then that person delegated responsibility to every province. The governor of every province is personally responsible for, showing the results, so to speak. And then the governor manages people at on the land with help of the Central Election Committee, of course. Okay, so it's not one vote in Russia. Okay, you got to understand, it's like 87 areas that voted, and each area is independent. And then all votes come to one place, get counted, and basically the guy responsible, he needed the votes. Okay, otherwise he'd be out of the system, out of work. He needed that. He was pushing everyone, and at the same time, the governors needed votes because if they didn't deliver, they'd be out of job soon. Okay, so this system is very sophisticated and very effective. That's how it worked. And then people on the ground, of course, they also were forced, okay, because if they didn't provide the results to the governor, that'd be out of their works, out of the jobs, And they were doing anything they could. That's why they were pushing everyone from second zero as the voting opened to make sure that everyone goes and votes. So everyone delivers the results, expected results.
Okay, got you. Thanks a lot. So, I have some question from the public, but I wanted to add in advance some data. But it's interesting for me to show what changed in the European Union because, in my opinion, let's say, as also Kostantin said many times, the huge effect of this war is that I don't know for how long, but Russia lost the best buyers of its oil and gas that were technically not European Union, but Italy and Germany. This is my personal opinion because 50% of the sole production of the European Union it's Germany and Italy. All the rest it's irrelevant because in 28 other countries are mainly services, agriculture, but the sole production it's Germany and Italy. What is changing is that you can sell oil, but if you have to take oil from Russia and go to Singapore and go to India and then go to Europe, you are reducing a lot the gap of revenue if you are exporting from, let's say, Peter and Poland. I think that we can agree on this. And the other problem is about gas. The Brotherhood pipeline that is going through Ukraine, the final destination was Italy, in a place that it's after Austria and Slovenia, it's called Tarvisio. And this gas pipe, it's actually not used completely from, I think, half of 2023. So the problem is the gas it's used from Slovakia, Czech Republic, and Hungary finish. But you can check the industrial production of Slovakia, Czech Republic, and Hungary. Irrelevant on European Union. We can see where like the LNG is coming. There is still a part of Russia that is 9%, but it's 9% before the share of gas in Italy was 40% from Russian Federation. Now it's 0%. Germany was 60% from Russian Federation. Now it's 0%. It can maybe arrive from LNG via another country, but it's huge loss of revenue for Russian Federation. This is why for me it's completely stupid to make all this mess, geopolitical, Ukraine, whatever. But the final results, it's like a huge loss of revenue that it's not, let's say, exchange from China and India, because we are not buying pipeline gas because there is no pipelines. So you have to bring it by LNG, and Russia is not with the right infrastructure. The other things, it's about what I thought that probably in the, if you remember, Kostantin and Natasha, they were not in that stream, but we showed this video of RT where Europe were to froze.
I know it by heart. Yes.
And we
Zima
will,
будет холодная, and the winter will be a long one.
and winter 2023 we were eating the rats, if you remember, in the RT. So
Christmas
what
2023.
what I'm saying is that, for example, if you see the inflation in Europe, it's drastically dropping off. I was saying the data of today, and this data is connected because the inflation in Europe were connected completely with energetic products. So with the shock of interruption of the product from Russian Federation. But we changed completely the suppliers. So it's a bad news in my opinion, because now Italy, it will be problematic for the relationship because we will be the biggest LNG hub for Southern Europe, and but the other thing, it's about let's see this, it's the inflation in Russian Federation, and we checked, Natasha, the last time, if you remember, masla and butter in the supermarket. So the trend in the European Union, it's dropping. The trend in Russian Federation, this is official data from Russian Central Bank, is going up. And interest rate, it's 15%. And when you are increasing maybe Kostantin can explain us better. But if you have the Central Russian Bank that it's increasing the interest rate, it's not a good thing with the macroeconomical data. This it's still I don't understand how much the game is worth about maintain the state of war that economically, in my opinion, is unsustainable. Also for European Union, because it was better before, but now it's not, let's say, beneficial for the Russian people. Konstantin and Natasha?
You've covered quite a large area. Okay, what would you like me to zero in on? On the interest rate, on oil trade, and
no, interest rate and inflation. It's the main thing. Expectation. The question is, my opinion of the Russian foreign policy about, let's say, damaging the European Union, was expecting an inflation that is going up, but after the shock, it's going down, and in the opposite, it's going up in the Russian Federation.
Understood. A few things. First of all, I found an answer for myself about the foreign policy strategy of Russian Federation. I thought of it for a long time, okay, and it didn't make any sense. No matter which side you turn it around, didn't make any sense. But then, once you imagine that there is no strategy, foreign policy strategy for Russian Federation, only tactics, today's goals, tomorrow's goals, makes perfect sense. It explains all the actions that Russia has been doing. Okay, that's about the strategy. Second answer about oil. European Union was the sweetest, the best, the richest customer you could ever imagine, the best customer in terms of oil and gas. And Russia had huge advantage because it had pipelines. Pipelines. You didn't have to bring oil and gas by sea, the pipelines, especially gas. And Russia is right next to Europe. The area of those, the distance of those pipelines was nothing, peanuts. Okay, you pump it and it's right there in Europe. It was the cheapest, the best way to deliver oil and gas to the best paying customer, Europe. And there was a war going on for European market for natural gas and for oil for a long, long time, because the Americans wanted to break in, Norwegians wanted to sell more, and Russia was fending off those attacks. I remember there were so many attempted. Why? Because it made economic sense. And Russia's always said, okay, that's no politics, just economics. And, well, I don't know how that was true, but economically, it made sense for Europe to buy from Russia. And there's no way that could have changed. There's only one thing could change anything. It was really difficult for other countries to break in, nearly impossible. And Russia did it itself. It started a war on its neighbor. Okay, it made everyone give up its oil, even though it was economically viable to buy it from them. Okay, so in the long run, this is so stupid, because you got to understand, Russia has lost European market for probably forever, at least for a long, long time. Norway, the United States, they have established themselves as the new suppliers, and you just don't change suppliers. Okay, that's long-term contracts, that's infrastructure, that's 30-year-old contracts with fixed prices and all of that. Take or pay contracts. If you don't take all the natural gas, you still pay for it. That's exactly kind of contracts that Russia signed with Germany and Italy. And you're right about the two powerhouses, Germany and Italy. And I think Austria also had a player in consumption of Russian gas. I simply don't understand those people. They destroyed Russian source of income, biggest source of income for a long, long time. There's no strategy in that. There's only tactics, okay? And talking about high interest rate, that's very, very simple, actually. You see, Russia does not produce much domestically. It buys, imports everything. When it comes to heavy machinery, equipment, consumer goods, even materials to produce, let's say, I don't know, like chicken food, basically. Instead of producing it in Russia, it imports, okay? And it pays in American dollars, because American dollar is a universal currency that is accepted everywhere. And once Russia was selling lots of oil and gas, it was receiving lots of American dollars, and it was spending American dollars on buying, and I'm talking macroeconomics right now. I was buying lots of goods, materials, services, and I was paying in dollars. Okay, so therefore there was balance. Now Russia has decreased hard currency revenue, dollar revenue, because it does not receive, just like your graphs say, they're right. It does not make much money. Well, it makes much less than it before. But then a lot of companies, Western companies, who had manufacturing facilities inside Russia, in the food industry, car industry, and so forth, they left. They stopped their plants, okay? Those plants, although Russians have possessed them, they don't know how to, they don't have materials, they don't have parts, they don't have technologies. I'll just give you one example. This Renault, European company, I think it was Renault Nissan, two companies, they owned and operated car manufacturing plant in Moscow. And they were making Renault Logan. That's a very popular, cheap car. And they left. They sold all their operation for €1. They had invested close to $4 billion, 3.4 billion euros over the years, and they sold it for €1. In business, it's called they forfeited. They said, okay, forget about that. That's our loss. But they left. As they were leaving, they erased all the software on the robots that are still there. And Russians were so excited. They said, oh, that's okay. We're going to manufacture our cars. They took possession of this plant, and it's dead. And it's been staying dead. They used just a couple facilities as storages for the Chinese cars that come. They store, they put Moskvich sign on, and they resell as Russian domestically made cars. Okay, that's pretty much a standard situation all over Russia right now. And but Russia is a country that is alive. Okay, people need to use things. Okay, businesses need to use things. They buy all those things. They don't produce them, but they buy from China, from Turkey, from other countries, and they mostly come through China and through Turkey. Okay. I gotta make it shorter. I'm sorry, I'm giving you a lecture on economics. So basically, another force is that Russian people started making more money. Just like Natasha said, military-industrial complex is working full-time, three shifts, and people have better salaries. The pay increased because they're motivated by the government to work more. Okay, the military-industrial complex is given lots of money. It's financed by the government. And don't forget that so many hundreds of thousands of people fighting in Ukraine, they get lots of money every month. Okay, and that money started flooding the economy. Okay, and then Russian banks now are at the record high of consumer loans. They've issued, I think it's over 40 trillion rubles worth of consumer loans. So basically that money is coming to the market, okay? But nothing is produced in Russia. The amount of goods and services is still the same, okay? But more people can afford goods and services and they want to buy them. Therefore, the prices are going up. And that is inflation. Supply and demand, okay? And what Russian central bank does is it uses the key interest rate to regulate the inflation. It raises the key rate, so it kind of tries to dehydrate economy of money. It's saying, look, it's much better for you to put money into the deposits, and you're gonna be, earning money on your money in the banks. And this is how it usually works. It's a classical tool for decreasing inflation. Increase your key interest rate, and then you decrease mass of money in the economy. Okay, so people take fewer loans because it's much higher interest rate, right? Businesses take fewer loans, and people store more money in the banks, keep their money in the banks. But at the same time, it has the opposite side. It's really bad for businesses because businesses need money. They need, the operation expenses. And then they usually go to banks and then they take loans for a month, for 2 months. They produce, they sell, and then they give the loans back. That's how business works, right? No one uses own money to manufacture, to produce stuff, So basically the high interest rate is killing business. It dries it out of money, okay? And 16% right now is a killer for Russian economy. And it's been like that for the past 8 months. And again, we're going to be seeing the results of this right now because economy is not as quick. It's not instant. You implement one policy, it takes some time for the results of that policy, for that policy to start working. So Russian central bank increased the interest rate, kept it high. And, just like Natasha rightfully said, Elvira Nabiulina, she knows what's going on, and she's been warning everyone, hey, hard times ahead. You haven't seen nothing yet. That's basically what she's been saying.
Kostantin,
That's why.
if I can ask something connected to this, also to Natasha. Okay. About cars, do you have like this sensation of this, let's say, flooding of Chinese cars in the market in Peter? Because like this is the official data of Autostat, and for me it's like shocking, also connected to what is Konstantin said, because the actual share of Chinese brands in Russia of the new sales are 61%. And it's interesting for me because I check how many factories are operated by Chinese in Russia and where are not. So it's all imported. So you lost the production and you are starting to import from China to to feel the lack of, let's say, Ford, Volkswagen, or whatever. Really in the street, did you have like this sensation of this flooding of Chinese cars, or no?
There's one thing. Yeah, of course. There, I see right now more Chinese cars than I see like Russian cars, probably, like Lada even. However, it's debatable. Lada also has some Chinese parts, but anyway. So I mean, China is everywhere here. I completely agree that we lost the best actually customer, Europe. And I think there's nobody really to disagree on that. And that these factories were working here, foreign factories, they were giving jobs. But there's only one thing that I would disagree with Konstantin is that the statement that there's no production in Russia anymore, like they don't produce anything, that was right like 1 year ago, I think, when they started only import Chinese cars to, import a lot to cover this demand that people actually had. So we could see this trains that are coming with, full of Chinese cars, these trucks that are carrying Chinese cars, they start to import them a lot to cover this demand. But right now, if you're going to go and check news, you will see that all these factories that were here, like Ford, like Hyundai under St. Petersburg, right? All of them, as you say, they were basically sold, or let's say hijacked by Russian government. I don't know how to tell it right. I mean, nationalized, whatever that, and sold to
Stolen. They were
Chinese.
stolen.
Or sold for one euro.
Stolen.
Sold for €1, whatever. These factories that were not working on, like I'm talking about St. Petersburg, for example, right? We had this Hyundai here, we had Ford's factory, Nissan factory here. They're basically producing Chinese cars right now. They just replaced the owner, and production is working, and people are working. So I think these graphs will change by time. Like if there's a lot of import of Chinese cars right now, soon it will be just Chinese made cars inside of Russia. Maybe the
Natasha,
percentage will be higher.
I can send you a video. I don't have it now, but I can show you how the Chinese produce cars abroad. So it would be very interesting for you. There is it's only for fun, but there is like an Italian car producer that is called DR, that it's technically, let's say, assembling the Chinese cars in Italy. Technically, we discovered that the assembly part is to change the logo on the cars. So the cars are also in Russia, it's the same. The cars are arriving already made with one other brand that will change in Russia with a Russian name.
Listen, Stefana, I can tell you because I was working for years actually in auto industry here. Okay, so we were like official dealer of Deo cars, which is Korean, right? And then this FAV factory, which is the main factory basically of China, Chinese Communist Party. Uh, we were basically dealer of them. So I know exactly how they collect their cars. I know exactly
No, it's
how
but
everything was going on. But just a second, let me just finish. There's a huge difference right now. I mean, years passed, and there's different categories of cars. Let's say so. These cars that we were selling, it was just the cheapest shit ever. So yeah, how much you pay, then that's what you get. But what's going on right now? They just basically bring the same parts and they just collect them in St. Petersburg. They might put this sign of Moskvich right now on the car, right, to make it like Russian. But spare parts, of course, come from China. The whole car is not coming from China. They're actually mentally there in the factory.
No, it's the same thing that I was saying to you, but in a funny way. Let's say that everybody were thinking that this DR was made in Italy, but technically was designed, produced as spare parts in China and assembled in Italy. So it was made in Italo-China, let's say like this. And but what I wanted to ask,
Can I ask a question? I didn't quite understand. So Natasha, you're saying that localization is high, right? So they produce stuff in Russia, or
I can't tell
misunderstood
you about the numbers, honestly. Like I didn't do research. I'm just talking about St. Petersburg, what I see and what I know, because yeah, I talk to people that directly there. So that's what I see. What they do with factories here, they
But
actually work.
what do? Do they manufacture a lot here, or they just bring it's big? It's called большие узлы, big packages, and screw them together.
They do the same thing that's what they were doing before, like with Ford. They used to bring details and parts and just collect them. Or Hyundai, it was the same. Господи, lucky. They were
Ford
just
in St. Petersburg.
they just bring parts and they just collect them together in this factory. Nothing really
But
hasn't changed
you
much.
can't buy any Fords in Russia at this moment.
No. I'm talking that was before. Right now, it's not Ford.
Yeah,
factory.
but right now, what's going on right now?
Chinese cars are. I'm telling you, the Chinese
Yeah,
cars.
but they don't. Okay, am I right that they do not produce the cars in Russia? They bring cars, put steering wheels on, screw them in, put wheels on, screw them in, and that's it. That's car made in Russia, and customs duty is not paid.
Well, it depends on which. No, they don't bring cars. They bring like as it was before. Nothing changed. They bring parts from different actually countries, not sometimes from China directly, because sometimes engine is like made in Germany and the car is actually Chinese, or electronics is Japanese but the car is Chinese. If we talk about lux cars, like expensive cars that are right now in the cities of St. Petersburg, these Chinese cars, they cost like millions of rubles, basically like Land Rover. And
they don't
their
cost millions
electrics,
rubles in China. They just cost millions rubles because Chinese are using and abusing Russians because they can now.
It doesn't matter. I mean, that's the Lux class here right now that replaced that Lux class that was. I'm not talking about what is better right now. That's another story.
Okay, understood.
These are what Lux right now, and the electronics that they use is basically Japanese. It's not Chinese. So there are some, like, we live in global world. It's not like 100% Chinese everything also there. So they just collected, of course,
I know
as they
for
were using
sure. I know
before.
for sure how they make Moskvich cars right now. They bring the entire car to Moscow. Okay, they have wheels disassembled, so they put wheels on, and they put the label Moskvich. But the entire car is manufactured in China. And there was a company, a large company called Jack, and they actually made an agreement with Lada so they could start their own production of large parts, some parts in Russia. But they did it in 2023, but about 4 weeks ago, they all of a sudden pulled out, saying our agreement is null and void because they are afraid of secondary sanctions from the Americans, and Americans have been pushing a lot. So I'm pretty sure that not one single Chinese car manufacturer will be manufactured. They'll be, selling cars manufactured in China, but none will be manufactured in Russia, even parts, because it's
Oh,
in China, they're going to be punished for that. And see, Russian market is tiny, tiny, tiny. For example, take Volkswagen. You know what Russian market consisted of global sales for Volkswagen Group?
I know that Russian,
1.45%.
nobody's debating that Russian market is small for them. It's still a market, but I guess we are talking about nothing because we will see. I mean, we can't predict what's gonna
We
happen.
have been
I
seeing
can't
it for
tell you
the
for
past
sure. Like
year.
I know how they like collect here, but what's gonna happen in 1 year, I can't predict to you.
Well, they have
Natasha,
been doing it in Moscow. I guarantee you, I've seen it. Okay,
No, in Moscow
they've
I
been
have
doing
not been. I can't tell you about this. Yeah.
that. Trust me, that's what they do. They like. I don't even know. I can pronounce this Chinese cars' names.
Yeah.
Something blah blah blah. You
They
know,
are hard
but
to.
they bring the car and they say, well, this is a Russian car now.
it's
But
I
anyway,
posted
let's move
content,
on.
Kostantin, and when I wanted to show, I have few questions from the people just to close in 1 hour and a half. So I put it in the comments with let's say interesting news about Reuters. It was the same case about Mosvich, but it's the Italian brand that is called DR, and because the commercial was fraudulent, because what said Konstantin about Mosvich was the same in the air. The Chinese strategy was to bring car directly to Italy and change a little bit. It's like to with jeans, and I put with zip and they made in Italy. It's the same. So Chinese strategy, it's something like this wherever in the world. So maybe Russia no, but I don't think so. And the other problem that is about this thing about the economical, let's say, Konstantin knows a lot about this, but only to put like Chinese in the moment are in a technical stagnation with let's say prices of production are going down. So it's very convenient for them to produce. It's like a chicken of gold eggs now, Russia, for Chinese, because they don't know where to send products. So and Russia can import, but only from China, because it's the only channel that remain open for this type of products. The other provider are let's say less available. As you said, Konstantin, I have the news, but there is an interesting news from Rosneft Germany. I don't know if you heard about it. And because if you remember, there was like one case of 5 electronical plants in Russia, owned by one Scandinavian company and one German, that were like, let's say, sold, nationalized for free, let's say some months ago in Russia. And technically, it was the same case in Germany, and now the government is discussing not to take the money of the revenue off. The money are frozen in a fund, in a trust, so they're not using it, but they are thinking to nationalize the property of the same power plants that were owned by Rosneft Germany. So I think that the ties are in a state that it's difficult to return back. Let me put the questions from the public. So, this. If tomorrow Russia decided to negotiate peace ceasefire with Ukraine, Europe, US, who is supposed to function as a guarantor for the peace agreement that will be signed?
I honestly cannot answer this question. Who can guarantee that Russia will not attack Ukraine again? I mean, before the start of the war, I was the first critic of those who were telling that Russia would attack Ukraine. I was saying, you're crazy. It's absolutely impossible. I mean, it would never happen. You're insane. You're Western propaganda. You're just hyping, and stuff like that. And after what happened on February 24th of 2022, I don't think anyone can guarantee. Like, who? Russia can sign any agreement that it will not attack anyone in the future, but that's the cost of the agreement. The price of that agreement will be the price of the paper and the price of the ink, and that's pretty much it. I mean, who will trust Russia anymore?
I don't think the question is just about Russia, actually, to be honest. It's generally, it's way deeper about the whole world order, that existed before war. And that's, I guess, the hardest question right now to solve. What I listen from philosophers, from anthropologists, from sociologists, they don't really have a clear answer what to do with it. Like, what can we do really? Because it's a clear crisis of democratic systems right now going on that led this to happen also, like Putin, and the world order collapsed not today, not during the war even. It was way before, obviously. So right now it's a very complicated question to answer.
Natasha, I'm sorry. I'm not a big expert on world order, but I don't see it has collapsed. I think everything is pretty much the same as it was before. But again, I'm not a big expert on that. That's all I know.
Yeah, I don't think that it was as before, because we have war in the middle of Europe right now, and connections, trade connections, you as economists, you can see also were broken, and a lot of things are shifting.
That's
and nobody
true.
can really guarantee peace right now. Nobody can guarantee that Armenia is safe. Nobody can guarantee to Georgia that they will be safe. Nobody can. There are a lot of conflicts popping up. Like, look at Israel and Palestine also. It's all things of the same chain.
But no one could guarantee that no one would attack Georgia or Armenia in the past. I mean, the world order is the same. The United States, the China, and everyone is in between them. So Russia is waging a war in Ukraine, but again, in terms of the world, that's just not the hugest war. Okay, and that definitely does not break the world order. It's changing a little bit, but I think the change is ever evolving. It's like evolution that always constantly happening.
No,
But that's
I think
my opinion. That's I'm not an expert on
that's a
world order.
long topic, another topic I think to talk about it, because it's it's very long and deep. And
Agreed.
I have to actually go, guys, because it's pretty late. I have to leave you
So,
because my daughter has
Natasha,
homework and I have to help her right now. It's pretty late.
Thank you so much. And
Thank you so
maybe
much.
we finish
I
here.
have to go too soon.
Thank you. It was nice
Thank
to
you so
see you
much.
both.
Ciao,
Hey,
ciao,
can I have a quick question, Natasha?
Yeah.
Before we go, remember our last conversation about prices? Has anything changed? Are you feeling more heat from higher prices, or everything is pretty much the same?
I told you back then that they are increasing, but they're increasing slowly. That's the point. And they keep doing that. I mean, of course, prices are increasing, and they will.
Mm-hmm. Okay,
And
so
there is more pressure on people from what I see. I noticed recently, because summer is coming, right? So when you talk to usual people, and then they used to travel, they used to plan something for summer to go to sea. So right now they're like, I don't have any plans because I don't have money to go. So there's definitely, if they don't see it, and if they don't see the pressure that much, on their daily lives, maybe from prices, you can see on their behavior how it's changing. They start to travel less, they start to go to shops less,
sound
etc.
is off.
So thank you, Natasha. I have
Thank you, guys.
See you soon. Kostantin, I have a last question for you.
Yeah, bye
Sure.
bye.
Ciao. So,
Bye, Natasha.
Bye bye. Spokojne noci. Ciao, пока.
Bye bye.
So,
Good to see you.
Last question for you. Can you give a 1-2 sentence prediction for 2024, 2025 for Russia?
Well, if it's one sentence, big changes.
Okay.
It's sugar coating is off, and turbulence and big changes. And we will start seeing them next week.
So I think that the question and answer was very interesting both. So just for finishing the stream, I wanted to tell you my point of view, and I think that the scenario that we will see, because I'm seeing a lot of rumors about it. I was discussing also with other friends, is that there is a pressure to find, let's say, maybe a temporary solution from now till November, because the election in US are still like a big step in what will happen, my opinion. Also, the European Union election. And do you think that if there is a stalemate or a ceasefire, like a Korean situation, it could be, if there is, let's say, a huge amount of security protection of Ukraine, let's say the part that is now not occupied, and still the most important things for me is that Odessa is still available as a port for the agriculture export. Do you think that it's something that could be acceptable for both parts? If there
I
is
didn't.
pressure or not?
I misheard. I'm sorry. Could you repeat that?
Let's say
I heard up till the elections in America. Okay,
no,
but
let's
then
say
from
that
them.
if the situation in Ukraine, it's like frozen like now, because I have a lot of rumors that there is a pressure from many parts to create a demilitarized zone, like
Oh yeah,
the
some kind
Korean
of
scenario.
solution. Some kind of solution. Okay.
But let's say that it will be not ideologically accepted by the Ukrainians, but for sure it could be a solution where there will be a flood of money from IMF, World Bank, European Union to, let's say, exchange the type of economy of Western Ukraine and let's say the part that don't want to be, let's say, connected with the Russian Federation, and for the rest of the part could be, let's say, not the ideal solution, but maybe a good solution for stopping these problems also for the Russian Federation, because you said that economically it's not beneficial in a mid or long term.
Well, couple questions here. First of all, I don't think that U.S. presidential election of November will change anything. Even if Trump wins, I don't know who will win, but let's say Trump wins. He was the president for 4 years, from 16 to 20. Did he do anything? He didn't even speak. He didn't meet with Putin once. What makes Russian think that he'll do differently this time? He will do the same thing. He won't even speak to Putin once. But then I think they're in for a big surprise. And second, Russia is so much in trouble right now. It needs a way out. Any way out. Any way out for Putin would be acceptable where he keeps the power. Okay, anything. To give the territories back, to keep them as part of Russia, you know. The problem is that he cannot undo what he did. Okay, what he has done. He cannot just withdraw troops to Russia and say, okay, that's it. We stopped the special military operation. Too many Russians will ask him, and why exactly we have done what we have done? We have destroyed parts of Ukraine, and then we've had so many Ukrainians killed and Russians. Are you going to bring our sons and husbands back? So Putin cannot do that. That fire will burn him. He knows that. So he cannot go back and he cannot go forward because he simply does not possess resources to do that. He has been in Zugzwang for the past, I don't know, 15 months, I'd say, and it's draining him out of resources that every single day is making Russia weaker. And he does want to have a solution for peace or for truce, I don't know. But does the other side want a solution for for this kind of peace, for this kind of truce? That's the question we should ask Ukrainians. Not. We can't talk for them. We will see. They have the president, they have the military command, and they have the citizens, the voters, and they will decide what they want to do.
So, thank you so much for your time. Thanks to the people that were watching. And remember that there is like all the channel of Inside Russia, Kostantin and Natasha that still return back to TikTok. So, please subscribe to their channel. Hope to organize something in live as soon as possible. Wait 1 second, Kostantin, while I finish. So have a nice evening to everybody. Good night. Spokojnej nocy.
Thank you,
Ciao.
Stefano, for having me. Thank you so much. You have a good one.